The Basic Education Department says the marking of Matric exam papers is ahead of schedule. It says 90% of marking centers have already closed. The extra days will give it time to capture all learners' results.
The assignment is almost completed ahead of schedule, 3 to 4 days ahead of schedule, which gives us enough time now to capture the marks of each learner. And I'm also heading the standardization process, which started yesterday. We are starting to prepare for standardization, getting qualitative inputs from each of the 9 provinces in all the subjects and papers that have been written, because that is very important. And standardization, it's about looking at how the paper presented itself to learners. Now that marking has happened, we now know how learners have encountered each of the papers, and we also have curriculum experts who will evaluate that against the curriculum objectives.
Well, let's bring you Teacher Union Sadtu's reaction to that, the near completion of the marking of exam papers. I'm joined now by their spokesperson, Nomusa Cembi. Nomusa, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. So, Priscilla Ogubanjo, the Director of Public Exams at the DBE, Department of Basic Education, making the obvious point that this marking season took place under extraordinary circumstances and saying it happened against all odds. It's nearly completed. Your assessment of how your members fared in as far as that process is concerned and how it was all managed, including management of the risks that were associated with COVID-19.
Good afternoon to Lasizwe and good afternoon to your viewers. As Sadtu would tend to agree with the department that yes, this marking process took place against all odds. Would like to firstly to express our condolences to the markers who died in the process, because they died in the line of duty, and we also commend and also express our condolences to their families and to their fellow teachers. We also would like to take off our hats to all the markers who decided to go and mark in this period, because we know that marking is a voluntary process. Teachers are not forced, they are not bound, they volunteer to do the work. So really it shows commitment that they are committed to education, and that they are prepared to put their all to make sure that learners' work is marked and their learners receive their results at the end of the day.
So there have been, the Eastern Cape is being singled out as having had best practice in terms of risk mitigation by actually ensuring that testing was mandatory before any of the markers entered the marking centers. But at some point there were murmurs about concerns about the quality of accommodation that some markers were said to be living in, particularly I think that came from Limpopo at some stage. Overall, the management of the marking centers and the practices there, also factoring in the best practice that has been cited in the Eastern Cape.
Yes, we commend Eastern Cape for ensuring that markers were tested before they entered the venues. And when we started getting reports of markers dying I remember the first was in KZN, we also expressed our wish that we want to see testing happening in all the marking centers before markers would enter the premises. And issues of accommodation were also raised, I think, in many places. But our members and leaders were there to ensure that there was compliance. So we are happy with the fact that Limpopo did comply when we raised matters regarding the issue of accommodation.
Nomusa Cembi, I've got to thank you very much for taking part in this conversation.